I don't have any jokes this morning. Don't hold your breath. Good morning, and welcome to the First UU Church of Richmond, Virginia. My name is Denise Rhymes, and I have the honor and the privilege of serving as president of the board of directors of this fine faith community. For those of you that are here for the first time, we are delighted that you decided to join us. Every week is different, so if you like what you see this week, come back next week and you'll get something totally different, which we also hope that you will like. We've been in this community since the 1800s and have a very rich and proud tradition over all of the history that we've been a part of this Richmond community. If you would like to join us and get to know others, particularly those of you who are new, and certainly for those of you who are virtual, you'll have a hard time joining us for coffee face-to-face, but if you join us before the service on Sunday mornings, we have coffee and conversation out in our courtyard, weather permitting, and we would love to see you there as well. Also, try to join us just a few minutes before the service starts so that you can read all the weekly announcements here on the screens to let you know what's coming up and the various activities going on within the congregation. So now I invite you to greet your neighbors as you are willing and able, and as you do so, you may remain standing as we begin our opening hymn after we greet each other. Welcome to First UU.
Song It's so good to see you all this morning on this beautiful but hot summer day. Hopefully you all will stay cool during the time of the service. If you start getting hot, if I start seeing folks falling out because of the heat, raise your hand and make sure we get the air conditioning cut back up. I am the Reverend Sherman Logan, and I have the honor of serving this wonderful congregation as the acting senior minister. I'd like to welcome all of you, old friends, new friends, those who are joining here in the Great Hall, those who are joining us virtually from wherever you are, whether today is your first time or 1,000 time. We are so glad that you're choosing to be with us today. We hope that you find connection, community, comfort, and challenge. We hope that you find love and your souls are nurtured, because you are an important part of this worship, and we are blessed by your presence. So as we gather on this day, each of us brings something to worship. We bring the burdens of the week. We bring prayers of hope and prayers of anguish. We bring our voices, our offerings, and our questions. We bring our faith, tattered or whole as it may be. We bring all of this to each other. So may we worship well today. Come, let us worship together.
The words for our chalice lighting this morning are those of the Reverend Lisa Daggy and have been adapted for our purposes today. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise, for beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise, for all the times and all the ways we have begun anew together. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, yeah, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part when darkness comes, yeah, and the pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by, yeah, your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. And oh, when you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind.
We have a reading this morning by Cindy Ogasawara from the Sun magazine entitled Story of Resilience. One sunny Monday morning, about 15 years ago, my mother was attacked in her home while she was doing her hair. She was getting ready to go to her teaching job at a nearby church preschool when she heard the doorbell ring. She went to the living room and peeked through the curtains. A man she didn't recognize was standing there. Deciding he must be a salesman, my mother quietly replaced the curtain and went back to the bathroom. The man, whose name we later learned was Kenneth, went around to the back of the house where our overly friendly black lab watched him break in. He came across my mother's purse in the living room, then continued to the master bedroom suite. My mother never saw Kenneth. He grabbed her from behind and started punching her repeatedly in the face. When he was done hitting her, he simply left, taking her purse with him. Thank you. At the hospital, my mother's face was so swollen and purple that I wasn't sure it was her until she said, "Cindy, it's okay. I'm all right." A few days later, Kenneth's mother turned him in after seeing his picture on the nightly news. He was sentenced to 15 years. My father installed a high-tech security system and bought a ferocious guard dog. But my illusion of our home as a place of safety was shattered. My mother returned to work at the preschool after 2 weeks. She would have returned sooner, she said, but she didn't want to scare the children. Kenneth had chipped one of her facial bones, and her left cheek still sagged a little, but otherwise she was okay. More remarkable than her physical recovery was her emotional resilience. She never experienced flashbacks or post-traumatic stress or even felt afraid when alone in the house. I, on the other hand, wouldn't be comfortable at home alone for years. By the time Christmas rolled around, she had sent a New Testament to Kenneth in jail with a card telling him that she'd forgiven him, just as Jesus Christ had forgiven her. My mother and I rarely see eye to eye on religion, but her grace and strength remind me daily of all that is good about faith.
Beloveds, as we enter into this time of prayer and meditation, I would like for you to lift up and hold in love the memories of our members of the community who passed away and those who have lost loved ones. We lost Janet Darden, and her memorial service was held on yesterday. Jim Carter passed away in the early morning hours on Friday. Diane Bear Wilson passed away a few weeks ago, and her memorial service will be held here on August the 6th. James Gambrell, Christina's Welsh father, passed away last week, and his funeral will be held at the Finity Funeral Home on Tuesday. And I would like for you all to say a special prayer. Hold this person deep in your hearts. Our assistant minister, Lauren Lepwood, her mother, Sandra Spivey, passed away on Monday. Denise Rhines and I will be leaving immediately after I finish the service to travel to Norfolk to be with Lauren, to support her and love her. So please hold Lauren and the rest of the families in your love and care, and pray for peace and comfort during this time of great sorrow. Now let us enter into a time of silent meditation.
Our prayer are words from Lynn Cox in A Web of Holy Relationships. Spirit of life, who draws us together in a web of holy relationships, make your presence known with us and in us and among us. Remind us that we are not alone in history. Ignite us with the courage of the living tradition. Remind us that we are not alone in entering the future. Anchor us with patience and perseverance. Remind us that we are not alone in our times of grief and pain. Comfort us with your Spirit, manifest in human hands and voices. Remind us that we are not alone in joy and wonder. Inspire us to honor and extend the beauty we find in this world, divine music of the universe. Let our hearts beat in diverse and harmonious rhythms. Cooperating with an everlasting dance of love, may we move with the rhythms of peace. May we move with the rhythms of compassion. May we move with the rhythms of justice. Source of stars and planets and water and land, open our hearts to all of our neighbors. Open our souls to a renewal of faith. Open our hands to join together in the work ahead. So be it. Blessed be. Amen.
Our share the plate recipient for this month is Drum, Diverse and Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministry. Drum and UU People of Color Ministry and an anti-racist collective was created 25 years ago to bring lay and religious professionals together to overcome racism through resistance and transform Unitarian Universalism through their multicultural experiences. As an all-volunteer ministry, Drum continues to lead efforts towards becoming an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, multicultural Unitarian Universalist association by creating space for youth, young adults, and families of color to heal and work collectively. Your contribution to Drum will support the ministry and positively transforming the lives of BIPOC UUs and help build beloved communities. Your contribution will also help support the following: Drum's chaplain teams of ministers of color who volunteer their time and the cost of their pastoral letters and memorial flowers and token of gratitude. In-personal regional gathering that connect new BIPOC UUs into the Drum community of care from area congregations. Digital ministry that includes regular virtual workshops and events. Elder Spiritual Odyssey that record the stories of longtime BIPOC leaders in our faith and share them publicly. And leadership development training, to name just a few. So friends, this morning, will you please consider giving a generous offering to this vital ministry of our association. An offering will now be taken and most gratefully received. And for those of you this morning who like to give cash or check, please raise your hand. The ushers will bring you an envelope. Put your cash or check in the envelope, and when you leave after service, there's a black mailbox on the wall across from the receptionist desk, and you can leave your envelopes there. Thank you. Our second reading this morning, Storm is Life by Fanteca. When it's to rain, clouds gather up in the sky. So dark, mild, puffy, and scary. No place is laid out for better safety. Here is where all should stay to witness thunder and its blossoming lightning. Creatures go about with no assurance of survival, but nature embraces our powerless selves to relax knowing that all is well. Like trouble, when it affiliates our lives without a sign or caution, brings nothing but turmoil to these shaken souls, helplessly gazing ahead for all confusion to pass on. Earth is never fun when one is sulking, 'cause then death prevails. Rain on its sanctifies. Same clouds that cover you with fear bring down water of life. Darkness loiter around for a while and blinds your focus so you see not when it turns. When it turns so far away that your vision is blared with any trouble ever existed. It's for this truth that rejoice when clouds gather, for sadness sent down are disguises filled with blessings to come forth, and the sun shines after this huge storm. My friends, we are in the midst of hurricane season here in the Commonwealth. We have been blessed that we haven't experienced the wrath or destruction of property and loss of lives that many communities have experienced during the past few years. But we are not immune to the storms of life. Throughout our lives, we will experience many different types of storms. Some of us have lived through rainstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, and other kinds of storms. Some were more severe than others, but each had its own unique feature. And while the frequency and intensity of these storms increased because of global warming, like the storms that are caused by the forces of nature, conditions in our society has caused the storms of our lives to become more intense, more frequent, and for some of us, more devastating. And for many of us during these past 2 years, it seems like the ominous storm clouds have hardly dissipated before another appears on the horizon. These are the storms that we all have experienced in our world. They are called the storms of life. Now, I know you've heard this before, and this is not news to many of you here today, but our world seems to be lurching from one crisis to another. We are still in the throes of a global pandemic. There are economic uncertainties and political and social turmoil throughout the land. The planet Earth is being destroyed by global warming and irresponsible stewardships of the natural resources. The human rights of many of our siblings are being snatched away by unscrupulous judges, despots, and politicians. These life storms form when the forces of nature and other people assert their power in our lives and wreak havoc in the atmosphere around us, and two or more elements conspire together to act in concert to pummel and saturate our lives. Now, a significant problem with life storms is that they disturb the atmosphere around us, and severe storms can tend to lead to a dangerous or life-threatening condition. The calm and tranquility that we are experiencing transform into tumult and chaos. One thing upset the other. And the challenges in all cases is to weather the storm and to make it through safely without being adversely affected. Now, this may be news to you all, but I'm not a meteorologist. So I had to do a bit of research to learn about storms, and I learned by definition that a storm is a disturbance of normal condition of the atmosphere, manifesting itself by winds and unusual force and direction. Now, we know we are facing storms when the power of changing winds upset ordinary conditions of our lives. And so when the atmosphere around us has been adversely disturbed and we have no idea which way things are going or where they are in, we probably are in a midst of life storms. When our lives have been turned around by illness, financial difficulties, relational problems, problems in our faith community, and some other forces that upset our normal condition, we will face a life storm. Now, friends, a wise elder once told me that. He said, Sherm, we all are either getting ready to go into a storm, we are in the midst of a storm, or just getting out of a storm. And he reminded me that even though we may be experiencing a period of calmness today, we need to be aware that the storm is brewing at some point in the near future. We must remember not to get too comfortable, because even if we just come out of the storm, another one is looming. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, this year has been a testament to the teaching of that wise sage. And there's someone here this morning that is in a storm right now. And it's not a storm that has been around for just a little while. You have been in that storm for a long time. You hoped so much that the storm would pass, but the storm is still raging. So armed with the understanding that the storms in our lives are inevitable, the questions that we must ask ourselves this morning is, how should we respond when we find ourselves in the midst of a storm? Well, the first thing, we need to recognize and accept that storms are a fact of life. And as I mentioned earlier, we are either getting ready to go into a storm, we are in the midst of a storm, or coming out of the storm. And if we keep in mind that storms are preceded by periods of calm it would be wise during these periods to prepare for the storms looming on the horizon. This much we can bank on, and we'll face our shares of life storms throughout our lifetime. And in almost most cases, before the storm hits, it would offer some kind of advance warning. Before its arrival, we'll see the skies around us begin to turn overcast, and things will seem to look dark and bleak. We would notice a change in the atmosphere around us. We'll begin to notice that people's attitudes and behaviors will begin to change. They may become short, testy, or even combative with us or others. We also discover that the opportunity and resources will start to dry up and diminish, and we may find ourselves facing financial difficulty, health challenges, problems with relationship, trouble at work, home, and even here at the church. All of these storms are signs that a storm is brewing, and we must prepare for its coming. And just as we prepare for snowstorms and hurricanes, we must prepare for life storms. Now, it's easy to handle things and the weather storms when we are aware that what is coming our way. And when we see the storms forming, it gives us time to brace and prepare ourselves for what is coming. And regardless of what stage of the life storm cycle that you are currently experiencing, you have choices. Your choice will determine how much damage you will experience from the storm. We can ride it out and endure what storms throws at us, or we can stand up, take charge of the situation, and speak to the storm directly. Now, if you notice, whenever there's a news report about a significant storm or hurricane coming our way, there's usually a reporter who's interviewing someone who decided to ride out the storm. And there are some life storms where we can ride out. We must find a safe place to take cover if we choose to ride out the storm. And when we are willing to ride out the storm, that means we are content until the storm passes, and rather than worrying about when it would end, we go to do something else. Now, friends, I know this might sound crazy, especially when it seems that our lives are experiencing a torrential storm, but let me suggest one of the worst things that we can do in the midst of the storm is to worry. Worrying will not cause the storm to pass by any quicker. Worrying will only exacerbate ours and others' anxiety. And you know, another friend of mine told me that a person can endure anything as long as they know it will not last forever. Now, I don't know if that's true, but storms, like other living things, have a lifespan. The problem is we don't know precisely how long a particular storm will last. I know you all have heard the saying, "This too shall pass," but there's an addendum to this. But when? And when you are going through storms, it may seem like they may never pass. And riding a storm out suggests that we are resigned to the fact that we cannot do anything about the situation, and we have decided to trust in the universe that we'll make it through. But of course, our faith will be tested the longer that we are in the storm. Minutes begin to feel like hours. Hours begin to feel like days. Days begin to feel like weeks. Weeks begin to feel like months. Months begin to feel like years. And 2022 began to feel like centuries. Perhaps the greatest challenge that we face in choosing to ride out the storm is that we must admit that sometimes we are powerless to do anything that would change what we are going through. And in some cases, riding out storms may not be the best thing to do. This is especially the case if we or those around us are getting hammered, our lives are in peril, and in situations like these, we need to stand up and take control. And there are times where we need to be passive observers, and there's other times where we need to take charge. There may be situations where we can't describe what is happening or lament about the damage that storms were causing. When those times occur, we must go directly to what's causing the problem. Could it be a fissure in a relationship, disagreement with a coworker, strife within families, substance or emotional abuse? And if we do not directly confront the things that create the problems in our lives, the storms will continue to wreak havoc in our lives. And we must identify what is creating and feeding the storms that we are facing and cut it off right at the source. If we cut off the air supply or whatever is feeding the storms or problems, we can starve the problem to death and would die of lack of oxygen. This might mean that we may have to end toxic relationships or change unhealthy lifestyles and habits. We may have to make better life choices. But the good news is that whether we ride the storms or speak to it, both require us to have faith in knowing that the storm will eventually pass over. However, the fundamental difference is that more variables are unknown involved in riding out the storm. And we have no idea that how long the storm would last, how much damage it would cause, or what condition we'll be in after the storm has passed. So the next time we find ourselves in the midst of life storms, let us remember we don't have to take it lying down, but rather stand up and speak to the storm, and we see that it makes a difference. Now, when we are in the midst of a storm, there are not any quick fixes or cures for our pain. There isn't any balm that I can offer you this morning that will heal a heart that has been cracked open, mend a body that is ailing in the global pandemic, or repair a breached relationship. Nothing that I can say this morning that would make your lives feel perpetually calm. But you know, Reverend Sherman liked to keep it real. I like to tell it like it is. There isn't a simplistic or pat answer that I can offer for the human struggle. So we all would be experiencing storms at some point in our lives. And as I said earlier, someone in this room is in the midst of a storm this morning, but you may be hiding your pain behind your mask. Some of us are in the calm before the storm and think, you know, our lives are going peachy keen and everything's going to be all right. And some of us has just come out of the storm and said, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, it's over. But regardless of where we may be in the storm cycle, we must remind ourselves that even in life's fiercest storm, the storm will eventually pass over. Now, life is like the weather, ever-changing. And we love those calm, sunny days when everything looked great, and we can't even imagine that the forecast could change. But we hope it changed today, because I don't know if I can deal with this 100-degree temperature out there. But then, lo and behold, we get the cold and dreary days when we're just kind of hanging in, waiting for the sunshine to return. And we know that sometime the storm is brewing on the horizon, and we must seek shelter. But the good news is that we are a resilient people. We adapt in the face of adversity, trauma and tragedy, life trials and tribulation. We are resilient. Now, resilient doesn't mean we don't experience any difficulties or emotional impact from the storm, but our resilient faith allows us to bounce back. We must accept the unknowns of our lives, the storms of our lives, and do our best to believe in the strength and power that resides in each one of us. Our lives may never be the same after we experience a storm of loss or struggle, but with courage, resilience, we can rise from the storms. Even when we are in the midst of a tremendous storm, we must hold on to hope that this storm will pass over. My beloveds, remember that the storm will pass over. Remember, we have depth of our souls, we have an unyielding faith that whatever it takes to weather the storms. And when the storms come, don't despair. Don't give up hope. You can seek shelter right here in this faith community, because you will be welcome, you'll be comforted, you'll be loved, you won't be alone. Together, we can make it through the storms. Together, we will make it through the storm. The storm will pass over. May this be so. Amen.
Take courage, my soul, and let the strength be on. For the night is long, and I am far from home. Thanks be to God, the morning light appears. The storm is passing over. 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 Hallelujah. The storm. The storm. The storm. The storm. The storm is passing over. 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 The storm is passing over.
Reverend Sherman left me these closing words for us today. They are by Priscilla Cron, entitled, "Storms Don't Last Forever." Storms don't last forever. The seas will gather and still, the skies will dry its eyes. The sun will reappear and speak riddles and rhymes. We will know to cheer again, the ground will be steady, inviting us to walk and stroll and leap again. The grass will grow and give us a pillow for reminiscing, the flowers a bed as we speak stories that relieve light laughter, our shoulders a resting place for moments of loud laughter. They are too for tears. But seasons change, and today we learn to rejoice again. So for our closing chalice, receive these words. May the flame continue to burn brightly in our hearts. May its light show the way as we make our way through each and every day. Go now in peace, live as free, courageous, and compassionate people, and be filled with the spirit of life.
Please stand for the final hymn.
Troubles wait at every
Yeah, see. Well, she actually had the wrong key, so we had to go to music and it turned out good. And
This morning?
yeah.
Yeah. I guess the original is like A flat or something.
Well, they did it in C. I mean, well,
they did?
I know Josh Groban.
Josh Groban?
Yeah, Josh Groban sang that. He actually